Welcome, I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief for Quality Digest, and today we are at Coast Aerospace Manufacturing in Placentia, California, not too far from Anaheim. And joining me today is Louis Ponce, President and CEO of Coast Manufacturing, and Chris Junt, Product Sales Manager for Trackers for Hexagon Manufacturing Intelligence. And Chris, we'll get to you in just 1 minute, but I just want to thank Louis here for letting us come once again to your facility and take up so much of your time so that we can talk about some Hexagon products. We were last at your facility about 12 years ago when you were over in Huntington Beach, not too far from here. And you've grown since then. Now you've got your brand new building, well, not brand new now, but a new building, and it's all your building. I believe you were leasing before, so your company's grown quite a bit.
It's grown. And before I start, thank you, Dirk and Chris. The relationship I've had with you guys has been wonderful. So I'm more than happy to do this. I hope this works out for Hexagon, and I'm sure your viewers really appreciate the aspects of what this brings to them. I think it's really important, key, just like when I do internships, you know, it helps that new generation come in. So I appreciate the old and the new.
Well, thanks, Louis. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Coast Aerospace does?
Well, we've always been in the tooling manufacturing business, but over the years we've added additional products, if you will. Okay. We now do electronics. Our design group has grown, which has entailed more electronics, more proof loads and testing and so forth. So those aspects have grown along with the company. We're in a larger facility now. Just enjoying it, whatever we can when the business is good. You know, it always seems to be predicated on, you know, how much work is there. Yeah. So this is a good time.
How old is Coast?
I started at Coast in June of 1999.
Wow, okay. And so you've had a relationship with Hexagon for quite a while as well, right? I mean, what, 20 years? 15
yes,
years?
A very good one over the years. One that I feel very confident when I get with my customers for support and their products. You know, I've dealt with a lot of different companies, and they're always there. They're always right there when you need them. They have excellent products, and that's what we want to bring to our customers, is the best products and support and quality that we can get. And we find that Hexagon, through acquisitions of different companies as well, support us as not only with our old Brown and Sharp CMM, but as well as new laser trackers. So we feel that their investment is worth what we're paying for.
Okay. And what about from Hexagon's perspective? I mean, having a long-term customer like Coast, what does Hexagon get out of that relationship?
Well, it's their feedback. You know, if you look at, they have a bridge machine in the room here.
I saw old Brown and Sharp.
Yeah. So the feedback about that equipment and being able to improve the hardware, being able to improve the software, to bring it back to Louis and his colleagues, and they be able to take advantage of that new technology and apply it here in the manufacturing realm. Louis had a predecessor to this. This is an AT500 MR laser tracker. He had a 901 prior to that. He had a T-probe with that system. He was able to take the T-probe that he had, but couple it with a new tracker that's much more portable and move into new technology, while still being able to use a software that he was using in the past, but then going to new versions that have more capability. So the value that we have in relationships like this, I look back when we go 12 years ago when we introduced the AT401 laser tracker here with Louis, is that we're able to bring it to market, but we're able to take feedback from our customers like Coast and take that back to our colleagues that are developing new products, developing software, whether it be metrology software, whether it be CAD/CAM software, whether it be accessories for machine tools, or whether it be accessories for metrology devices, and make their life more efficient.
Okay. All right, and so, yeah. Well, Louis, once again, we're going to get into our demo here, but once again, thanks. I realize we come in here, we take up hours of your time. I really appreciate you letting us do it. So.
It serves a great purpose. Okay. Thank you, Dirk, for your work and your product, your article, and you too. Thank you very much.
Okay. So, Chris, I think you mentioned just a minute ago that the last time we were at Coast, there was a different laser tracker, the AT401, right?
That's correct, yep.
And that was kind of the new release of a tracker at that point, right?
We did an AT401 launch event at Coast Aerospace some 12 years ago at their old location. And I remember it very well because I was only 3 years into working with laser trackers at Hexagon at that point in time. So it's nice to revisit Coast to bring the new product that will replace the 400 series with. We went from 12 years ago, we had 3 iterations of the 400 series tracker. We went from the 401, and that was just a 3D tracker using a reflector. We went to the 402. At the time that the 402 came out, we made improvements in the technology, but we also added the B probe as a probing solution for it. And then we came to market with the 403, also offered the B probe, and it was more dynamic than what the predecessors were. And now, in June 8th of this year, we released the AT500 as our new system joining the Absolute laser tracker family. So we call it the Absolute trackers. And we have 4 systems now. They look very similar in nature. We have the AT500, we have the ATS600, we have the AT930, and we have the AT960. And it really depends on the customer's application, what tool is best for the job. So our application engineers and our sales engineers work with our customers to go in and say, what are the tolerances that you're trying to achieve? Are the parts way up here that you're trying to measure? Do you need longer ranges, or can you get by with a shorter range? So our sales engineers and our application engineers are picking the right tool for the job. And the tool in this particular case is our Absolute Tracker AT500.
Okay.
We offer it both as a 3D tracker, or we offer it as a probing system, or if a customer decides that we want a 3D tracker up front and they want to add the probe, we call it the B Probe Plus, they want to add the probe at some later date, they can.
Okay, let's take a look at them.
Tim Cordova is joining us here.
Hey guys.
Tim is our sales engineer for the West Coast for trackers. Tim's been on board longer than I have. So by the time we were at Coast the last time, 12 years ago, Tim had already been on board at Hexagon, and prior to that, Leica Geosystems for 6-8 years. I joined about 4 years after Tim joined. So we've been supporting this product in entirety, and we feel like we know it really, really well and love to help our customers with it.
Was that the setup?
That was the setup. So as you can see, there
I
are.
noticed he just stopped. He
Yeah.
like propped it on
I
top of the
set it up
tripod and
here.
he was done. Okay.
I set it up here, and we're ready to go.
So that is actually, that is one of the key differences. From my recollection, that's one of the key differences from the 401 that I saw a long time ago, which was still a pretty easy setup, but that's like all in one, right?
Yeah, so what we've done, this is our very first laser tracker in our Absolute Tracker family, and our first laser tracker at all, where we've integrated the controller into the tracker itself. So if you look at Louis' AT960 here, we have the controller here,
right,
and we have the sensor cable here.
Right, and a battery, is that a battery pack also?
That is an external battery available for it, but everything's external here. This is even cleaner yet, where we have an integrated controller.
Okay.
We have 2 batteries on board here. Those 2 batteries will actually run the system for up to 6 hours.
Okay.
But the beauty is those 2 batteries are not integrated into the laser tracker. They're removable.
Okay.
So the benefit in that is if you recognize that, hey, the software, or by viewing the battery indicator, that a battery is getting close to being out,
okay,
you can grab another battery and you can hot swap the batteries in place with the tracker not shutting down.
Okay. Yeah.
So we just cleaned it up from a portability standpoint. You saw Tim walk in here with the handle, and he put it right on the stand. He now hits the button to turn it on.
Okay.
And because we have an absolute distance meter in it, it is solid state and it fires up very quickly.
Okay.
With the sake of the 960 here, it still has an interferometer as well, and there's some cases and some applications that people really like that highly dynamic laser tracker yet today. But the IFM has a laser oven. The laser oven takes about 8 minutes to warm up.
Okay.
This being solid state, you hit the button in it and it's ready for use.
I hesitate to say this, but I think I've heard you use it. You're calling this, or you have mentioned a few times, that this is kind of an entry level laser tracker, but it also kind of just depends on what your needs are, right? It might be entry level for some people, or some people it's like, no, that's just, I don't need any more than that. It does exactly what I want.
it's really the entry to our absolute tracker family.
Okay.
And where Tim and I looked at it for a long period of time, we've always been known for the highest end equipment.
Sure.
So when you look at competitive products out in the market, we would have a gap in our product offering. And really the AT500 and the AT500 probing system now fills that gap. And it's been very popular for us so far. So there would be certain cases people absolutely love the 400 series, but it left a bit of a gap in our overall family, and this fills that gap.
What kind of problems, customer problems do you feel, application problems do you feel that the 500 addresses best?
Well, in the case of what we offered before, certainly the 960 MR T-probe, we can offer this with a scanner. We can do robot calibration, highly dynamic work. Not everybody needs that, okay, right? So somebody's needing to pay for something that maybe they don't need because it's our highest offering. Sure. So where we find that the 500 fits in is shops very similar to this, especially when you're doing, like in the back of Coast shop here, they're doing a lot of fabrication, they're doing welding, and you know, you have the probing system here in the AT500 that matches the tolerances on the part, and typically in industry, you want the system to be 4 times more accurate than the tolerances are in the part.
Okay.
So it allows us for a less costly solution to still meet those requirements and the customer be able to get their job done. Okay. So that's really where it falls in. Where the 400 series did really, really well for us was people that needed more accuracy than what typical survey devices could provide, like a total station. The AT403 stepped in very well, 402, 401. They stepped in really well to that market. And there are some customers that need more range in measurement than what most laser trackers on the market can do.
This has got a phenomenal range.
Yeah, so we always feel pretty strong about, like, this is an MR tracker, but we offer the LR tracker and the XR tracker with a reflector, with a corner cube reflector. We have 80 meters radial range from those trackers. And that's, of industry, that's the longest ranging laser trackers on the market compared to competitive products.
Right.
Now the AT500 and the predecessor, the 400 series, takes that to a whole different element. We're at 160 meters radially with the AT500. So the
yeah, 500 feet roughly.
It's like 1,000 feet volume.
Oh,
yep.
yeah,
Volume.
yeah,
Diameter,
Yeah, diameter. Yeah.
Not to interrupt, but while you guys were talking, the unit booted and is now actually measuring to that reflector.
Okay.
So in the past, we had to thermalize an interferometer, take a few minutes to warm up. This just has to boot and we're ready to measure. As you can see, it is now tracking me as we go.
Yep, there we go. And this is still, well, I think all your trackers have, what do you call it? Where you can break the beam and it'll recover it. But you can, even more than that, you can actually not just break the beam, but move to a different location and it'll pick it up again.
It'll reacquire the target, whether that target be a reflector, or whether the target be a B Probe Plus, or like with the 960, whether that target's a T Probe or whether that target's a scanner. It'll just pick it up and you're able to use it. Now the great indication, what you showed there, is you can tell right away that the blue lights come on in the tracker where it's looking for a target right now because it's not locked on and it's looking to acquire it. This is our 5th generation of Power Lock. So we continue to make improvements in what its capability is. I would say our 1st generation that came in well, what, 2009, Tim, something like that? Yeah. So that 1st generation was better than what competitor products offer today. Yeah. But we're at our 5th generation, so as you're tweaking the firmware, as you're tweaking the capability and new component capability comes to light, then we can apply that to the product and even make it better yet today. This thing I've tracked with an AT500, even though our specs are 160 meters, I've been outside in the sun at 190 meters and break the beam, maybe a car goes through the beam, I'll come back to either looking for the beam and locking on, or if you come back to about 80, 90 meters, it just finds the reflector and off and running.
I would like to show what that looks like. Maybe we can do a quick demo of moving around with the reflector, going behind an object or something, so we can actually see how it does reacquire.
Yeah, we're gonna switch to that one because it's just a better view.
Okay.
But I'll look, if you see that tracker, just instantly grab this one.
Yep.
And now as I walk over here, I'm gonna go behind these beams and the tracker's just going to follow and catch on to me on the other
obviously
side.
Obviously the beam was lost.
Yeah, so right here, the beam is lost. It no longer can see the beam.
Right.
Once I get into its view, it instantly locks
And it
back
picks it
on.
right back up. Okay.
So if you look back many, many years, right, when laser trackers first came out, most of them were interferometer based, no ADM.
Okay.
And so you would start at a bird bath on the laser tracker, that's your zero position, and you would move out and you would start using it. You were always so cautious. You would tape off a given area because you don't want people breaking your beam, you don't want forklift traffic across it. If somebody broke the beam or you're using a 1/2-inch corner cube reflector and you just tilt it ever so slightly and the beam breaks, that means a trip back to the bird bath.
All the way back, line it up. Yeah. Right.
So that, for all of our trackers today, we have no bird baths on our systems. Right? They initialize automatically when they're ready, and you present a target to them, they acquire the target, and you just start measuring. We've had customers justify purchases of our systems in a shop like this, even largely because of power lock. If you can imagine being on Louis' 5-axis machine down here, doing an inspection on the machine, and you're being careful where you're walking, and there's some trip hazards there, you're not wanting to pay attention to the reflector, you want to pay attention to your health and wellness, right? So you get to where you need to go, you're safely there, lock on, and start your inspection or aid in setting a detail on a tool or whatever you may be doing.
Before we get to actually taking some measurements, you also mentioned the B Probe Plus.
So we did have what was called the B Probe with the AT402 and the AT403. I would say most of our customers that used the B Probe back in those days, they were using it just to minimize, maybe if they could take 2 points, that would minimize them having to do a station move with the laser tracker. They would gather the points with the B Probe. The user experience was, not fantastic, but it could get the job done. What we've done now is the B Probe Plus has come out with the AT500, and it's a total different experience, largely because of the technology that's in the tracker to be able to not only track the corner cube reflector that's embedded in here, but also track the LEDs that are on the face of it. What they do is we get XYZ position here with the laser. The camera base gives us basically pitch, roll, and yaw of where the probe is during the measurement. And so never would I have thought in the past with a 402 or 403 tracker with a B probe would I do a part inspection like this.
Right.
It's just not dynamic enough to do that.
Right.
Certainly with the 500, it brings that capability to light.
Okay.
And we call it the B Probe Plus. The tooling that goes along with it for probes is M5 threaded extensions, M5 threaded styluses. So if someone has a T-probe already, or they have some of these styluses from a coordinate measurement machine, they can use it on the B Probe Plus. But it's really our entry-level probing system. What Tim's seen with customers here on the West Coast is it's very hard to distinguish the difference between the measurements coming off a B Probe Plus and an actual T-probe.
Okay.
It's performing well beyond our expectations, but it's where we come from. Our Swiss colleagues are ultra conservative. So when they put a specification on something, typically our customers, they see on a day-to-day performance, half of the spec is typically what they see.
Okay. Well, should we move on to taking some measurements and measure some tooling? Okay, so this is a composite layup tool that's in front of us right now, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and Tim, we're going to be setting up and measuring this. Yes. And we should mention that this is not a flat tool. This has actually got some contour to it, right?
That's correct.
It looks flat, but it's not.
There's about 4 different surfaces right in this area from the scribe lines in.
Okay.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the 1/2-inch ball and use the tooling ball targets to align to this part, and then from there we'll be able to run the reflector anywhere on the tooling surface and see where we're high, where we're low.
Okay.
We can switch back to our probes and check deeper areas, and then we can also grab the scribe lines. So first thing we'll do is align to the part. I'll grab my beam and measure the first point. And you see the tracker signals me that it got it. Second point. I also get an audible sound from the computer, which is nice.
And when the three flashing green lights means it's taking a measurement?
When it's flashing, it's taking a measurement. When they're solid again, it's like, hey, I'm done taking a measurement. It's okay for you to move.
Okay. So if you're in a really noisy environment or something, I mean, we hear beep, but if you're in a really noisy environment, you wouldn't necessarily hear that.
Just work from the lights.
Just from the lights, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now anywhere I touch on the screen, I'm seeing the deviation back to the CAD model nominal, which is fantastic. If I wanted to record that point, I could just use my remote here and trigger a point to record it. And now I have a comparison point at that location. So what I did a couple things. With the reference points, I used what's called a stable point. Okay. So as soon as the ball was stable within a tolerance, the tracker measured the point automatically for me. Okay. Now, because I could do it that way with this, but I also have the remote, so now what I'm doing is whenever I want to measure a point, I just go ahead and hit a single. If I wanted to scrub, I'd have to go change the setting there, and I could scrub dynamically at 100 hertz and collect 100 points a second with this tracker. Okay.
So that's a big difference from the AT500 to its predecessor, right? The AT401 that we brought to Coast 12 years ago, we only did discrete point measurement with it. It was only taking about 3 to 5 points a second when the 401 came out. This is doing 100 points a second, okay? So it's more dynamic in terms. We got better from the 402 to the 403, we got more, but we only were maybe max of 10 points per second. Okay. We're at 100 points per second for here, and most users, that's great, that's plenty fine. For what they need. Yeah.
So I saw you were taking points using the remote, right?
Yeah, so what I'm doing here, I didn't want to use stable point, I just want to trigger a point whenever I'm ready, so I'm going to hit the button here and record a single point. The tracker comes with this little remote, which is great.
Now, stable point is if you just leave it stable for a certain amount of time, it automatically takes a point.
Yeah,
right?
if I hold it still within a certain tolerance, it'll trigger the point for me. Instead of doing that, I want to trigger the point manually with this remote, which is very cool.
So the two different methods, what's nice about them both is it prevents you from having to run back and forth to the PC or having somebody else hitting the enter button and say take a measurement. Yeah. So both those methodologies work. And this remote is the same remote that we had with the 400 series tracker, but it has 4 buttons on it, much like the 4 buttons that are on the T-Probe. Okay. But the B-Probe Plus only has 2 buttons for taking the measurements, but the nice supplement to having the remote control, you can program those 4 buttons. So you can say the A button is, I want to take a measurement. Okay. Maybe the B button is, I goofed up and I want to back up that measurement. You can delete that point without having to go back to the PC. C and D, just create what you want them to be in the application software.
Got it.
The cool thing about the AT500, it's a 100 hertz tracker versus our 403, which was really 5 to 10 hertz tracker. Okay. The cool thing is I can actually scan the surface now and get a bunch of points. So I'm actually going to tell it continuous distance. I want to take a point every 50 thousandths of an inch, and I'm going to go ahead and scan. So I'll hit the same button, the A button.
So now you're taking points at 100 points per second?
Correct.
Okay.
So
now I'm collecting 100 points a second, sorry.
So when we had the 403, it could scrub about 10 points a second, but we typically wanted to keep that being a planar or a spherical geometry where you could do a geometry fit and you could filter off some of the points, right? Here in this case, we're at 100 hertz. This is not a plane, this is an organic surface. So if you had much more contour here, like we see in a lot of aerospace parts, where you can actually scrub that surface with a AT500 like you would with an AT960. Some of the differences is this is an absolute distance meter tracker. We're at 100 hertz. This system has the absolute distance meter, but also an interferometer. So if you need to get up to that 1,000 hertz, most typically in applications like this, as long as you can scrub that surface and get it, we'll go ahead and do that. And maybe less and less people are actually doing that today. Because like what we did at Janicki early last year, we had the scanner with the AT960. So you could go non-contact surface scan it. So it just depends on the application, what's required, how the customer wants to approach it.
Okay. So that was using a reflector, but we've got 2 different B-Probe Plus, right?
The B-Probe Plus allows us to use a longer probe and not be forced to use just either the 1/2 inch, 7/8 or 1.5 inch ball. So that's great. I can easily switch to my B Pro Plus, grab my beam, and in the computer, I'm in the same coordinate system because the tracker hasn't moved, and now I can digitize holes, what have you. I'm comparing back to the CAD model, and I can just take points, just like that.
Now again, this is single point measurement with the B Pro Plus.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so the user experience is night and day versus what the B Probe was with the 403 or the 402.
Okay.
You can see Tim here is he's taking a measurement very, very quickly. It's almost like a half a second measurement. It's right in that ballpark. Okay. So really, really, really quick. The other thing that you can do with the B Probe Plus that we couldn't do with the predecessor, with the B Probe, is that a lot of customers, when they're setting, let's say, a detail on a tool, or they're aiding in assembly, the B Probe didn't have a live readout dynamically telling where you are from where you need to go.
Oh, okay. A live readout.
Yeah, live readout.
Okay,
and
okay.
so what we have right now is the B Pro Plus has that dynamic capability where, okay, this is my deviation from CAD, and maybe you want to drive that detail to 0. It has the capability of doing so just like you would with a reflector.
Okay.
So that's new with the 500. The one thing that we don't do with the B Pro Plus that we did do with a reflector is when you saw Tim scrubbing the surface with a corner cube reflector.
Yeah, can't do that with
we don't do that with a B Pro Plus. Okay. And a bit of it has to do with the technology that we use is a fixed field of view to look at the LEDs on the B Pro Plus.
Okay.
Versus when we get to the T Probe with the 960, now we have that capability to go in and scrubbing that surface. But it really depends on the customer's application. Most people that we've been finding homes for AT500s already, they're just tickled pink with the capabilities of where it is today. If they need more, then they'll look for more.
Now, I'm assuming that the software is able to identify, because I noticed you actually have two.
That's a great question.
Out, right? The software can identify which one is which. Like if he picks up the different one, it knows.
So it's a little bit different technology. So with the T Probe, with the 960, we have the ability to recognize what T Probe is presented to the tracker. We also have what stylus that is actually on the T Probe. The tracker knows which one it is. Okay. For the purposes of being a little bit more cost conscious for our customers, the B Probe Plus, we don't recognize what the B Probe is.
Okay.
The application software and the end user will go in and select the B Probe that they're using, and then they qualify the tip that they want to use. Okay. That process is very, very quick. It's about 6 points with the probe, and it's qualified and ready for use. Most of our customers, if a customer buys one AT500 with one B Probe, you're set up using, like in this case, a 6mm probe there on the one laying on the tool. If you wanted to use a 1/2 inch, or you wanted to go to a scribe tip like the one that Tim has in his hand, you would typically unthread the M5 thread, put a new one in, and you'd go through that qualification process.
Okay.
The benefit that you do have is, let's say you're at a customer, and much like we have today, we have two AT500s, right? These two AT500s both have B Pro Pluses with them. So what we did is we assigned both B Pro Pluses to both trackers.
Okay.
So it's really nice because then you can say, I want to use the 6mm, lock on, pick it, make sure you have the right one. Then when you get to an application that you want to use the scribe tip, because of this scribe line, you can go in and select that one and use it. So they're already pre-qualified. You can shift between the two. You just have to tell it which one you're using.
Okay.
So you're not limited. A customer could say that I want to buy a probing system, and then at some later date, I want to go add another B Pro Plus. You certainly can do that if you so desire to do.
So tell me a little bit about the software we're using today.
Yeah, so the software we're using today is a metrology-based software developed by Hexagon, and it's predominantly used with portable equipment. We call
Inspire.
it Inspire.
Okay.
We call it Inspire, yep. And so Hexagon has 3 metrology software platforms. So they're running PCDMIS over here on this bridge machine behind us. We also have Spatial Analyzer, which is a really, really high-end software capability that the likes of Northrop down the road uses here. You see it a lot in aerospace for sure, shipbuilding for sure. But we're coming to market with Inspire. We used it at Janicki when we were there last spring, and it just continues to grow and have more capability. But the intent of why something new. Well, when you start ground zero and developing something, you can make it more capable and you can make it easier to use. So the whole concept of Inspire is ease of use, but also handling point cloud data really, really well. In the case of the AT500 today, we don't need point cloud data necessarily. We're only grabbing 100 points a second.
Right.
But in the case of like when we use the Absolute Scanner AS1, we're doing 1.2 million points a second, have to have a software capable of collecting that data. But the AT500's been out since June 8th. Nearly every, whether it be a Hexagon software or whether it be a third-party software that's people are using out there today, they have interfaces for the AT500 already.
Okay, so if you have a third-party software, you've just using it forever, you don't really want to change, more than likely it has the capability to connect to the interface for it.
Yeah, it's like Tim here on the West Coast. You know, he can go into a customer, they want to trade up from older technology to the AT500 and they're already using a software, they're locked into it, they've been using it for years, then they can upgrade into the AT500 to take advantage of it while still using their software that they know and love.
Yeah, and the advantages of Inspire, ease of use, easy to train on, that type of thing?
That's really what it comes down to. Okay. Most times when we sell a laser tracker, and it comes standard, an AT500 comes standard with 1 year subscription to Inspire. Even for those customers that have those third-party softwares, we're providing it with the tracker so they can, give it a review, check it out, see if it's something that's appropriate for them, or if it's a customer that's doing something brand new, right out of the box, they have no historical software, then they can start with Inspire right from the get-go. Okay. But the training that we do is typically 2 days with the software. We like to see, let's say 1 day with the hardware, so you can make sure that that you're getting the most out of your hardware, that you're able to comp the probe tips, you're able to verify for yourself that that tracker's working as good as we expect it to work. And then 2 days to really get into the meat of the software and become proficient at the software and put it to use on your shop floor like you would with this tool today.
Okay. Now, I noticed, unlike I've seen before with a lot of Hexagon equipment, that there is no data cable that's going from the AT500 to the computer, so I'm assuming you got some sort of wireless communication going on then.
Yeah, so you'll see all three of these trackers that we have in here today. We are broadcasting SSID for Wi-Fi. Okay. And we know each one, they're AT500, a given serial number, AT960 with a given serial number. So just like you were at Starbucks and you wanted to get onto the Wi-Fi network, you do the same with these laser trackers. So it's very easy to communicate in that fashion, especially when you're doing reflector-based measurements, probe-based measurements, very easy to do so. That's a complement to being able to run on batteries. Sure. So you don't have the trip hazards on the floor, or if you want to pick up that tracker and you want to move it elsewhere, you don't have to think about the LAN cable, you don't have to think about the power cable to go along with you. But I will say, there's a lot of customers in the country that they have to be sensitive to Wi-Fi communication, and they have to be sensitive to Bluetooth.
In terms of security?
Security, yep. Right. So there's a number of customers here local on the West Coast where they ask us, we can't have Wi-Fi here.
Yeah, I think Tim's mentioned that you got customers that they just, I'm sorry, you can't have any wireless communication at all, right? I mean, might be spies out there sucking up the data.
Whatever it may be, it's just not allowed.
And so what we have the ability to do, and customers will ask us of this, they're like, well, can you remove the Wi-Fi card out of it? And can you remove the Bluetooth card out of it? We typically don't ever do that, because what we have the means to do is disable it at a level where an end user could never turn it back on. So let's say that we take this AT500, we sell it to a customer, they're going to put it into a classified environment. We disable it all. It goes into the classified environment. It's being used in that environment. But let's say 12 months, 18 months, that customer wants to bring it out, have the tracker sent in for preventative maintenance and maybe a calibration certification, that none of that data from inside those four walls came with the tracker to go to the outside world. So we can disable that Wi-Fi, we can disable that Bluetooth altogether.
And then they just use LAN.
Yep. And so in that particular case, what you have here is we still have an Ethernet port on the laser tracker. And all those customers that aren't having Wi-Fi, they're gonna run an Ethernet cable from here to the respective laptop that they're using. So we still have that capability. So definitely wanted to talk about that here with you to make sure that people know that, hey, yeah, Wi-Fi is awesome and Bluetooth is awesome, but sometimes customers can't use it, and we have provisions for that. And why do we have Bluetooth?
Well, yeah, I was just going to ask. Yeah.
So this is our very first tracker that has Bluetooth on it.
Okay.
And the reason why we have Bluetooth is that we can get locked on with our phone.
Okay.
And there's really two purposes of the phone and the laser tracker. So the AT960 here, on the controller, it shows how level the tracker is or not, right? Okay. Here we don't have a controller, we don't have a display to show us whether the tracker's level or not, okay? So there's two ways to tell whether the tracker's level or adjust it so that it is level, and that's either through the phone. We have an app, it's called the AT500 app, where we can go in and level it and view it on the phone, or we can go to the application software and we can see a bubble level in the application software and level it up that way. So, it's nice to have access to Bluetooth. So if we were here at Coast and we wanted to level to gravity, we could use the phone. Okay. But when we go to a classified area, we can't use the phone. So then we use the application software for the viewing of that bubble. Now, we talk about level, we talk about orient to gravity. In this particular case, the tracker does not need to be level. Right. The part does not need to be level. What Tim was doing when he measured with a 1/2-inch corner cube reflector in the tool reference system, he gets the tracker aligned to the tool. Sure. Level isn't necessary. Right. But when it is necessary, you have the ability to go through, level up the tracker, go through an orient to gravity process, and then the standing axis of the tracker is level to gravity. And so what you can end up doing is you can go in here and you could take a point right here and say, oh, this is Z0 right here. Then you can move over with a reflector into a new position and you can see high, low, where is that point relative to this one, but level to gravity. Okay. And so then if you needed to adjust this tool or object to make it level, you can. But it's not something that you have to do every time. It's only when the level to gravity applications, present themselves is when you need to do it. Our trackers, and with really the inception of the AT401 some 12 years ago, our trackers started to be used more and more and more for leveling applications, especially at long ranges, than ever before. And the reason why is the tilt compensator that we brought to light back then, which all of our trackers have yet today, is 2 times more accurate than any other level on a laser tracker in the market. Okay. So we're at ±1 arc second, with most other devices are ±2 arc seconds. And so people really take the advantage of using a laser tracker to replace transits and levels from the past.
Okay, all right. Mm-hmm. All right.
One of the things that the 403, it had a great level in it, but you were forced to level it for the most part, and it could only work in the vertical position. So the cool thing about the AT500 that we didn't mention is it can be mounted in any orientation. So you can hang it upside down, you can hang it on its side, any orientation. Nice enhancement over the 403.
Yeah, you kind of go back to the past. When Tim started with us, most normally the trackers only had ±45 degrees of angle. So you'd have those customers that want to measure straight down or they want to measure straight up. And so they would have to lay it on its side. The 401, 402, 403, we couldn't do that with it. Okay. What a lot of people will do with any of our trackers today here, if they have to go straight down, we have mounts that'll get them over 35 degrees, let's say. Okay. Because then, you can go straight if down. You're over 35 degrees, you can go straight down. And then also, you can go straight up here, or you can go here, right? And you can, depend upon where you want to go. Okay. So that's really a benefit today. The other thing that we can do is hang them upside down, where we never did that with the 400 series in the past.
Who do you think is your biggest customer right now for the AT500? Who's showing kind of the most interest in it?
Well, I mean, the variety of different customers, but some of the first orders that we've had were customers that were let's say in construction type work, and maybe they would have went to a 403, but they want a more dynamic experience. They were some of our very first orders. Customers that are in the aerospace world have really taken advantage of the new tracker already, and a lot of it has to do with they're working in nasty environments outside that are dusty, dirty, hot environments.
Temperature range is pretty wide on this.
Yep,
too,
so
right?
we extended the temperature range on the AT500, so a larger range than what we had before. The other thing is we didn't mention earlier is that all of our trackers now have an IP54 ingress protection rating on them. So you can have them out in the rain, much like the 401 that we showed when you dump the water over it. Yeah, so you can have it out in those nasty environments today. But it has been, the product has taken off really, really well for us across a number of different industries. And a lot of it has to do with the price point, you know, where they may have looked at something else before, but they like the price point and the value, all the capabilities that it provide us with. And before, they may have never looked at buying a B probe with a 402 or 403 tracker. Now they go in and they evaluate this. They have Tim measure a scale bar with it, or have Tim go measure a part relative to like the gold data or really good data that they have for it, and they see that the deviation from what they're expecting is rock solid, so they take advantage of that probing technology that they wouldn't have in the past.
One of the things I think we don't even mention it sometimes, but we take it for granted, is even though it's a lower price point than the 960, it's spec'd exactly the same as far as accuracy. So you're not getting a degradation in accuracy because it's a lower price. You're still a Leica tracker with the Leica accuracy as the flagship tracker.
It's just some of the I don't know, bells and whistles, for lack of a better term, that you might find in the 960 you're not going to find in the 500.
It kind of comes down to
what do you need?
Yeah, it comes down to what you need, and when it comes down to our customers, I mean, we still have customers that gravitate to the T-probe, and the reason why is the tracker with a corner cube reflector, exact same accuracy specs regardless of our trackers that we offer. It depends on what range do you need as a customer with a reflector, largely what comes down to it. When it comes down to probing, this is still 2 times more accurate than this. So it depends on, against that tolerance to measurement uncertainty ratio that you're trying to maintain. And then with the AT500s, we don't support scanning. Where we still do that with the AT960. A lot of our customers are using our TMAC technology yet today, which is all of our 6-DOF technology for doing robot calibration, or they're doing real-time tracking and correction. They still use a 930 or a 960 for that type of work. So just depends on the application.
Okay, so Chris, you guys, Hexagon is going to be at IMTS, I'm sure this year. What are we going to see there?
Yeah, so we'll have a few booths. And you know, a lot of our hardware and software offerings will be on display. We'll certainly, from a tracker side of the business, in our metrology and production software booth, where largely customers will see Inspire and Spatial Analyzer and be able to interject with application engineers and sales engineers. We'll be in that booth with 3 of our trackers. We'll have the AT500, the ATS600, as well as the AT960. And then in our large booth, we'll have all the trackers as well. But we'll have ARMs, structured light, CMMs,
all the fun toys.
All the software to support them.
Okay, all right. Terrific.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
See you there.
Thank you too.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll see you at IMTS. All right. Thanks a lot.